Hello friends, I am Prashant. I welcome you to Educational Stuff. Today we will be discussing the third article which is published in the Hindu editorial page. This is regarding US and China relations. If you want to see the rest of the articles, you can see it from the description. This is regarding US and China relationship. A slew of recent announcements on China by US President Donald Trump, clear indication that the competition between US and China is likely to sharpen in the post-COVID world. On May 29th, the Trump administration said it would revoke Hong Kong's special trade status under the US law. The administration also passed an order limiting the entry of certain Chinese graduate students and researchers who may have ties to the People's Liberation Army. The US president has also ordered financial regulators to closely examine the Chinese firms listed in US stock markets and warned them that do not comply with US laws would be delisted. Americans have a strange fascination for China even after since early 1900s, when Western missionaries decided that it was God's work to bring salvation to the Chinese books. Books like The Good Earth by Paul S. Berg and Red Star Over China by Edgar Snow in 1930 romanticized the country. Even after the Chinese communists seized the power, the Americans hoped to cohabit with Mao Zedong in the world's US hegemony. The Chinese allowed them to believe this is extracted from their prized US President Richard Nixon gave China the international acceptability it carved in return for being admitted to Mao's presence. In 1972, President Jimmy Carter terminated diplomatic relations with Taiwan in order to normalize relations with China in 1978. President George H.W. Bush washed away the state of Tiananmen in 1989 for ephemeral geopolitical gain. And Bill Clinton, who was the presidential candidate, had criticized Bush for indulging the Chinese, proceeded as the president to usher the country into the World Trade Organization at the expense of American businesses. All American administrations since 1960 have been complicit in China's rise in the unrealized hope that it will become a responsible stakeholder under Pax America. The Chinese are hard-nosed and unsettlement about US. They have always pursued America with a selfish purpose, albeit couched in high principle. They have spoken words that America wanted to hear, anti-Soviet rhetoric during the Cold War, and market prices principles thereafter to disguise the real purpose of thwarting US hegemony. Even since Cold Warrior John Foster Dulles spoke in 1958 of weaning China and other satellites away from the Soviets through regime changes known as peaceful evolution, every Chinese leader from Chairman Mao to President Xi Jinping have clear-eyed that US represents an essential threat to the continued supremacy of the communist regime. Mao put it best when he told high-ranking leaders in November 1959 that US is attempting to carry out its aggression and expansion with much more deceptive tactic. In other words, it wants to keep its order and change our system. The collapse of Soviet Union only reinforced this view and strengthened China's resolve to resist by creating its own parallel universe. China is building an alternate trading system, a multilateral banking system under its control, its own global positioning system, digital payment platforms, WeChat Pay and Alipay, a world-class digital network, Wi-Fi, cutting-edge technological processes in sunrise industries and modern military forces. It is doing this under the noses of the American and some of it with the financial and technological resources. Voices of caution have been found and few far between, among them political scientist John who wrote in 2005 that the rise of China would not be peaceful at all. But the world chose to believe General Secretary and Communist Party China Hu Jintao assurances about peaceful rise, when satellite evidence showed that China was building military installations in South China Sea. Chinese Southeast Asian neighbors and the US prefer to believe assurances to contrary given by Mr. Xi on the lawns of White House in 2015. It is only Mr. Trump that Americans are financially acknowledging the uneasy fact that the Chinese are not driven and in their their age. He has called China out of a trade practice. He called China out of 5G. It was Mr. Trump in 2017 National Security Strategy document that perhaps for the first time clubbed China with Russia as a challenge to American power, influence, and interest. His recent research in China-specific restrictions on trade and legal migration are possibly only the beginning of serious readjustment. A full-spectrum debate on China is now raging across the US. Former White House Chief of Staff Stephen Bannon declared that the US is already at war with China. Other, like diplomat Richard Haas and former president of World Bank Robert, warned that a new Cold War will be a mistake. Scholar Julian Gerich, in a brilliant essay, The Chinese Resentment of Interdependence, talks about the similar process under a way of Beijing. Both sides are actually aware how closely the economies are tied together. From farm to factory, the US is heavily dependent on supply chains. Chinese have been unable to break free of the dollar. To what extent to decoupling is possible is yet to be determined, but one thing is inevitable: India will become part of collateral damage. The Hong Kong question: will Hong Kong become a game changer in the post-COVID world? China's decision to enact the new national security law for Hong Kong has been commended in unison by US and its Western allies as an assault on human freedom. Why is this significant? The point of divergence, even dispute between them, have so far been the material realm. With Hong Kong, the US China rivalry may possibly be entering the idealism domain. For some time now, there are reports that Chinese interference in the international or internal affairs of democracy. Countries in the West have tackled individually, always mindful or not jeopardizing the trade with China. Hong Kong may be different. It is not only the bastion of Western capitalism in the East, but more importantly, the torchbearer of Western democratic ideals. Think of it as a sort of Statue of Liberty. It holds aloft the torch of freedom and democracy for all those who pass through Hong Kong en route to China. This is an assault on beliefs, so to speak. This comes on the back to not unreasonable demands that China should come clean on its errors of omission in the early days of COVID-19, when greater transparency and interaction might have been prevented or least mitigated the pandemic. In the months ahead, more information may become public from sources inside China itself about the shortcomings of the regime. That will further fuel the debate of the superiority of Chinese model as an alternate to democracy. Will this form of ideological underpinning of the birth of new Cold War? That will depend on who wins the Washington in November, on whether profit will gain Trump politics in Europe, or on how skillfully the wolf warriors in China can manipulate global public opinion. The lines are beginning to be drawn between America on one side and China on the other side. A binary choice is likely to test to the limit of India's capacity to maintain strategic decision autonomy. This is regarding US and China relations. It's a binary choice between US and China is likely to test India's capacity to strategic and autonomy. Thanks for joining me. This is a part 3. If you want to see the rest of the articles, you can see it from the description or icon is displayed right now on. Before I conclude, I request you all to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day.